dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain Mark Angelides, and Tim Donner remains Tim Donner. And we are continuing our conversation on what to look towards in 2026. And specifically, we just got started talking in the last segment, Tim, about the midterm elections and how we think they'll go. And you mentioned that you see, and it's not just you that sees it, they are, in fact, midterms are grievance elections. So what kind of what kind of turnout do you expect? What kind of overall arching feeling do you get about the November midterms this year?
A lot of careers have been ruined with bad predictions.
Sure.
But
unless you're Jim Cramer, that guy's still
around. Jim Cramer, we had to get him in there. The CNBC tout. I would be surprised if the turnout for midterm elections was unusually high.
Right.
Because, yes, you have Democrats who will be angry at Trump just because they're Democrats and because he's Trump, no matter what he does. As I've said before, he could walk on water, and the headline would be Trump can't swim. So there are some things that Trump just can't control. But I think what will hold down turnout is the fact that the Democrats themselves are at a low ebb in terms of their public approval. They're down lower than they have been in about 30 years, certainly at the lowest approval level of the entire 21st century. And they show no signs of cohesion. They show no signs of a leader emerging who can consolidate the progressive and, quote, moderate wings of the Democratic Party, which is more like traditional liberal and progressive. And so they're still in a state of disarray. So, yes, they're not Republicans, which will accrue to the benefit of Democrats to some degree. But it's not like the Democrats themselves have offered an appealing alternative to the American people. So I think turnout, I wouldn't expect it to set any kind of records.
I'm wondering about this. You talk about the Democratic Party currently being leaderless, essentially. And I wonder if there's something about that, that there are clearly people who want to lead the Democratic Party going into 2028. Their problem is that if they get in now, then if they become the figurehead, the leader of the party, the de facto leader of the party, then all that happens between now and 2028 will fall on their shoulders and weaken them as it comes to a presidential election, because they'll be taking the brunt of everything. So if they raise their head above the parapet early, it's likely to get knocked off by some flying trebuchet. Especially when we consider the approval rating of the Democrats that you just mentioned. I'm not entirely sure it's hit bottom yet. It is absolutely the lowest it's been in this century, but it could go lower, right? Especially if some of Donald Trump's economic policies come to fruition in the way that he expects them to.
Well, I'll tell you this much. We just did a story. Graham Noble wrote it on libertynation.com. Actually, it was late last year, in which he talked about Kamala Harris is sending out all the signals that she's going to run again. Well, I can tell you this, if she raises her head above water level, that's not going to do anything to help Democrats. In fact, it seems preposterous to me that she would believe she could actually become president after the years that she spent in Washington and failure of her campaign, which she can blame on Joe Biden. She can blame it on, she only had 107 days to campaign, though you and I are among those who believe if she had twice as much time, she would have lost more decisively than she did. But the point is, a party that's out of power, a party that has lost the trifecta by definition is leaderless. So this happened to the Republicans, particularly in 2009 and 2013 in the aftermath of the two Obama victories. But in 2020, Trump eventually reemerged as the putative leader of the party as they headed for 2024. For the Democrats, who is it? Nancy Pelosi is gone. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, has proven to be, frankly, not ready for.
I would like to point out that, and I always like to do this for Mr. Jeffries, Representative Jeffries, is he has lost more votes for Speaker of the House than any person in history, and I think that's a record that's going to follow him around. Sorry, please carry on. I always like to.
Well, so then, with Pelosi gone and Jeffries inept and Chuck Schumer as unpopular as he's ever been,
and fighting for his life,
there is no leadership there, and so who emerges? I mean, is it Gavin Newsom? Is it Kamala Harris? Is it a J.B. Pritzker? They're going to start sending out signals. These potential candidates about their intentions, although undoubtedly they won't announce until after the midterms.
Sure.
We'll probably be sitting here in 1 year, Mark, in 2027 at the turn of the year and speculating about who's going to get in the race and when.
Yeah.
But, the Democrats, all they can offer now is not being Trump and not being Republicans, because their agenda and their political orientation are both extremely unpopular. They have yet to pivot from the disastrous results of the 2024 election.
Yeah, and I think as history tells us, though, that not being the party in power is probably the best advantage you can get when it comes to winning a midterm, right? It's the inbuilt advantage. Tim,
generally speaking, yes.
Yeah. Although I believe there are 2 or 3 exceptions, but 2 or 3 out of 119 Congresses. Tim, yes. Final question, just a 1-word, 2-word answer. Have you made any New Year's resolutions, and are you going to stick to them?
I have resolved to come up with a New Year's resolution. It's TBD, Mark, to be
decided.
I have resolved to make a resolution.
And
now, does that sound like a politician?
It does. Tim Donner, 2028.
Well, wait a minute. You don't get out of this without telling us your New Year's resolution or resolutions. So let's hear it.
My New Year's resolution is to be a better family man than I was last year, and I intend to stick to it. Tim Donner, thanks ever so much for being here.
Thank you, Mark. Happy New Year.
And that's all we have time for on this special New Year's edition of Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I'd like to thank our guests, Andrew Moran, Joe Schaefer, and Tim Donner, for being here. And of course, thank you, the listeners, who take the time to tune in each and every week. We do appreciate you. Please remember, Liberty Nation does not endorse campaigns, candidates, or legislation. And this presentation is no endorsement.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.